In the middle of the Indian Ocean, far from the African mainland, sits a country that often defies expectations. Mauritius is small, only about 2,040 square kilometers in land area, yet it has an exclusive economic zone that stretches across a vast part of the ocean. It is African, but geographically closer to the world of Indian Ocean trade routes than to the continent's interior. It is tropical and famous for beaches, but its story is not just tourism. Mauritius is also one of Africa's most politically stable states, a high-income economy by World Bank classification, and the only country in Africa often ranked as a full democracy by major democracy indexes. To understand Mauritius, you have to look beyond the postcard image. This is a story of volcanic islands, colonial empires, forced labor, sugar plantations, migration, legal disputes, endangered wildlife, and a society that turned diversity into one of its defining strengths. Mauritius lies about 2,000 kilometers off the southeastern coast of Africa, east of Madagascar. The country is not just one island. It includes the main island of Mauritius, where most people live, as well as Rodrigues, Egalega, and St. Brandon, also known as the Chagos Shoals. Together with nearby Réunion, which is a French overseas department, Mauritius and Rodrigues form part of the Mascarene Islands. These islands were born from volcanic activity, and their isolation shaped both their ecology and their history. The capital, Port Louis, is located on the main island and became the country's commercial and political center. Because Mauritius sits along major Indian Ocean routes, its location made it valuable to sailors and empires. At first, isolation protected it. Later, that same position made it a strategic prize. Before permanent settlement, Mauritius was uninhabited. Some historians speculate that Arab sailors may have known of the island around the year 975, possibly calling it Dina Arobi. Later, Portuguese maps referred to it as Ilha do Cerne or Ilha do Cerne, and Portuguese sailors visited in 1507. But the Portuguese did not build a lasting colony there. For them, Mauritius was more of a landmark and stopping point than a settlement. That changed in 1598, when a Dutch fleet commanded by Admiral van Warwick landed in the area now known as Grand Port. The Dutch took possession of the island and renamed it Mauritius in honor of Maurice, Prince of Orange. The name would survive, even though the first attempts at colonization would not. At this stage, the island was still a remote and difficult place to settle, rich in resources but far from imperial centers. The Dutch tried to turn Mauritius into a productive colony, but their settlements were short-lived and troubled. They were interested in ebony forests, sugarcane, and areca production, and they brought cane cuttings from Java. They also brought more than 300 Malagasy slaves, revealing how early the island became tied to forced labor and colonial extraction. But the project failed. Cyclones, isolation, supply problems, and difficulties maintaining a stable settlement made Dutch occupation unsustainable. Yet the Dutch period left lasting marks. They introduced animals and plants, exploited natural resources, and contributed to ecological damage. Most famously, human arrival led to the extinction of the dodo, a flightless bird found only on the main island. The Dutch did not build the Mauritius we know today, but they began the pattern that would define the island for centuries, outside powers trying to reshape it for profit. In 1715, the French took control and renamed the island Île-de-France. Under French rule, Mauritius became more deeply integrated into imperial networks. The island's harbor, especially at Port Louis, became strategically important for trade and naval activity in the Indian Ocean. Plantation agriculture expanded, and enslaved labor became central to the colonial economy. The French period helped shape the island's language, place names, architecture, and cultural identity. Even after French rule ended, French influence remained visible in Mauritian Creole, in Franco-Mauritian communities, and in many social traditions. Mauritius was not just a distant colony, it became part of a wider struggle between European powers for control of sea routes linking Africa, Asia, and Europe. Its value came not from size, but from position, ports, and production. In 1810, during the Napoleonic Wars, the United Kingdom seized the island. Under the Treaty of Paris, France ceded Mauritius and its dependencies to Britain. Interestingly, British rule did not erase French culture. The British kept many existing laws and customs, while governing the colony as part of their empire. Mauritius then became one of the British Empire's major sugar-producing colonies. Sugar shaped land ownership, labor, politics, and society. After the abolition of slavery, plantation owners needed a new labor force, and large numbers of indentured workers came from India. This migration transformed Mauritius forever. Indo-Mauritians eventually became the majority population, while Creole, Sino-Mauritian, and Franco-Mauritian communities remained significant. The island became a layered society, shaped by Africa, Europe, India, and China, all within a British colonial framework. Mauritius gained independence in 1968, but the road to sovereignty included one of the most controversial episodes in modern Indian Ocean history. In 1965, 3 years before independence, Britain separated the Chagos archipelago from Mauritius to create the British Indian Ocean Territory. The largest island, Diego Garcia, was later leased to the United States for a military base. The Chagosian population was forcibly expelled, causing long-lasting trauma and an international legal dispute. Mauritius argued that the separation was unlawful and that decolonization had been incomplete. The International Court of Justice later issued an advisory opinion supporting the return of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. This dispute became more than a border issue. It raised questions about empire, military strategy, forced displacement, and what true independence means when territory is removed before a country becomes sovereign. The Chagos issue continued into the 21st century and became a central part of Mauritius's foreign policy. International bodies increasingly recognized Mauritius's claim, and the legal and diplomatic pressure on the United Kingdom grew. According to the article, a bilateral agreement signed in May 2025 recognized Mauritian sovereignty over the islands. The wider significance is that Mauritius, despite being a small state, used law, diplomacy, and international institutions to challenge the legacy of a much larger colonial power. The case also kept attention on the displaced Chagosians, whose rights and future remain deeply connected to the islands. For Mauritius, Chagos is not only about territory. It is about national completeness, historical justice, and the unfinished business of decolonization in the Indian Ocean. Modern Mauritius is defined by diversity. Its population reflects centuries of migration, enslavement, indenture, commerce, and settlement. Indo-Mauritians form the largest group, while Creole, Sino-Mauritian, and Franco-Mauritian communities contribute to a complex national identity. The country is also unusual in Africa because Hinduism is the most practiced religion. At the same time, Christianity, Islam, and other beliefs are part of public life. Multiple languages circulate through society, including English in official contexts, French in media and culture, and Mauritian Creole in everyday communication. This diversity could have produced deep division, and Mauritius has not been free of social tensions. But its political system developed around negotiation, coalition building, and representation. The result is a society where pluralism is not a slogan, it is the basic structure of national life. Politically, Mauritius follows a system closely modeled on the Westminster parliamentary tradition. It became a republic in 1992, while retaining the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in the United Kingdom as its highest court of appeal. This mixture of local sovereignty and inherited institutions reflects the country's colonial history, but also its pragmatic approach to governance. Mauritius ranks highly for political and economic freedom compared with many countries in the region. The Economist Democracy Index has ranked it as Africa's only full democracy, while VDEM classifies it as an electoral democracy. Elections are competitive, institutions are comparatively stable, and peaceful transfers of power have strengthened its reputation. Mauritius shows that democratic durability is not only about size or natural resources. It depends on institutions, trust, adaptation, and a political culture capable of compromise. Economically, Mauritius began independent life with a heavy dependence on sugar, a legacy of the plantation era. Over time, it diversified into textiles, tourism, financial services, and other sectors. This transformation helped it become one of Africa's most competitive and developed economies. The World Bank classifies Mauritius as a high-income economy, and the country ranks in the very high category of the Human Development Index. But its model is not only about markets. Mauritius is also a welfare state. The government provides free universal health care, free education through the tertiary level, and free public transportation for students, senior citizens, and people with disabilities. These policies helped broaden opportunity and reduce some of the vulnerabilities that small island economies often face. The country's success is not accidental. It reflects decades of diversification, social investment, and political stability. Mauritius's natural environment is just as remarkable as its political and social story. Because the island was isolated for so long, many plants and animals evolved there and nowhere else. The most famous was the dodo, a flightless bird that became extinct soon after human settlement. Its extinction is often used as a symbol of human-caused environmental loss. But the story does not end with disappearance. Mauritius is also home to surviving endemic species such as the echo parakeet, the Mauritius kestrel, and the pink pigeon. These animals came dangerously close to extinction, but conservation programs have helped bring them back from the edge. That makes Mauritius both a warning and a source of hope. It shows how fragile island ecosystems can be, but also how targeted conservation can succeed when science, funding, and public commitment align. So what makes Mauritius stand out? It is not simply that it has beautiful beaches, or that it is a small island with a big ocean zone. Its importance comes from the way many histories meet in one place. Arab and Portuguese navigation, Dutch naming, French culture, British rule, slavery, Indian indenture, Chinese commerce, African identity, and global diplomacy all shaped the country. Mauritius carries the memory of the dodo and the reality of modern conservation. It carries the legacy of sugar plantations and the achievement of a diversified economy. It carries the pain of Chagos and the persistence of legal resistance. Above all, it challenges simple assumptions about Africa, island states, and post-colonial countries. Mauritius is small in land area, but its story is expansive, a nation built at the crossroads of oceans, empires, cultures, and survival. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.